Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm.
Today, we're going to tackle something I think a lot of you have probably wondered about.
Okay.
What exactly does a tax director do all day?
Interesting.
And is this maybe, a career path that you should be thinking about? Our source material for this is actually pretty cool, I think. It's a practical guide from Indeed.com on common tax director interview questions and answers.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost like, if you're going into that interview room,
Yeah.
or even if you're just someone on the outside trying to understand this role,
Right.
this gives you some really good intel.
What I find fascinating about this
Yeah.
is it doesn't just jump into like the technical skills
Oh, interesting.
right away.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes this deep understanding of the whole, tax landscape,
Yeah.
which is, it's got to be so much more than just like memorizing the current tax code, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's funny because when I think of taxes, I'm very much in like the here and now.
Huh?
Like, did I fill out all the forms correctly this year?
Right.
But you're saying a good tax director is almost like predicting the future.
Exactly.
Right.
They need to be on top of any like proposed legislation,
Yeah.
court rulings that might set some kind of precedent,
Mm-hmm.
It's really about understanding the
Okay.
trends, the forces that are actually shaping tax law, not just like what the law is right now.
So it's not just about being like a walking encyclopedia of tax codes.
Right.
It's about like being able to analyze and interpret them in this context that is always shifting.
Precisely, yeah.
Okay.
And to do that well, they have to be good with the tools of the trade.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like TurboTax here.
Right.
The source does mention proficiency in tax software.
Yeah.
But I think to really be effective,
Mm-hmm.
a tax director would probably be using, the enterprise level stuff,
Oh, okay.
like the Thomson Reuters One Source or Corp Tax.
Got it. So we're not talking about like me doing my personal taxes on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
These are some serious tools for like the big corporate world.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
with huge volume, huge complexity
Yeah.
that a tax director is going to see every day.
Okay, so we're starting to see this picture that,
Yeah.
it's technical and conceptual, both. But
Mhm.
the source also stresses this like leadership and strategic thinking piece,
Right.
which I gotta admit kind of surprised me. I
Yeah.
always had this picture in my head of like a solitary person.
Just crunching numbers.
Yeah, crunching numbers, not leading teams or anything.
It's a common misconception. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the technical side is like the foundation, right?
Right.
The tax director is also like a leader.
Uh-huh.
They're responsible for guiding the team, developing tax strategies,
Yeah.
and then they've got to communicate all this complex stuff to stakeholders.
Okay, so, but isn't strategic thinking like the CEO's job?
Hmm.
How does that fit into the tax director's world?
That's a great question. Yeah. So the CEO, they might be setting the overall, direction of the company,
Yeah.
but the tax director is crucial for making sure that all of that is done in a tax-efficient way.
So they're thinking several steps ahead.
They have to.
Mm-hmm.
They got to anticipate how different business decisions
Right.
might affect the company's taxes and liabilities, and then find ways to, minimize costs,
Yeah.
but while still staying compliant with all the rules.
So they're kind of like the tax strategists,
Exactly.
figuring out the maze so the company wins.
Right. And that's where leadership really comes in.
Okay.
This source, there's a question about, communicating complex tax changes to a board of directors,
Yeah, that's tough.
which that's not just knowing the stuff.
Right.
You got to explain it so that people who aren't tax experts understand it.
So like even I could understand.
Exactly.
It sounds like a tax director has got to be a master communicator, not just a math whiz.
Absolutely. They need to know their audience,
Yeah.
get everyone on the same page,
Right.
advocate for their recommendations in a way that's persuasive.
So it's like technical expertise, sure.
Yeah.
Communication,
Yeah.
and then also that strategic mind.
And the source really brings all that to life
Yeah.
with these interview questions, the examples they give.
Oh, cool.
Let's look at some of those, get into the weeds a bit.
I'm all for it.
They give you such a good view of like the day-to-day,
Yeah.
what a tax director is really dealing with.
The first one that jumped out at me
Okay.
was, how do you make sure your team meets all the tax deadlines?
Right.
And the answer, it focused a lot on tracking systems and teamwork. It's almost like a project manager kind of vibe.
That's a great point. You can't miss deadlines in this job.
Right.
The penalties, oof, they could be rough.
Yeah.
So organization, being proactive, delegating well,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, those project management skills, they apply here for sure.
So it's coordinating,
Yes.
setting expectations, holding people accountable.
All of that.
Makes me think about my own deadline management,
Uh-oh.
which honestly could use some work. Haha.
Well, a tax director's success, a lot of times, it depends on the whole team meeting those deadlines.
Right. Makes sense.
So, yeah, leadership and organization, you got to have them.
Okay, here's another one that I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of like a strategic tax decision that actually benefited a company?
Good one.
And the answer was about finding an overpayment
Oh, interesting.
and then making a plan to fix it.
Okay.
It made me realize, like, a tax director can save a company a lot of money.
Absolutely. They're not just passively following rules.
Right.
They're looking for those opportunities to optimize,
Mm-hmm.
get the best outcome legally for the company.
Yeah, yeah.
That strategic mind, it can lead to big savings, which is a huge edge.
So it's seeing that big picture,
Yes.
understanding the money side of all these different tax strategies,
Right.
and then making recommendations that fit with, like, the company's goals as a whole.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about human error.
Ooh, yeah, no one likes to think about that.
No, but it happens.
It does.
And there's a question in here about how to minimize that risk.
Right.
Like, when you're doing those tax calculations,
Yeah.
the answer is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Double-checking, using the software well, and training your team.
Makes sense. Very sensible.
Yeah, it just highlights how crucial accuracy is in this job.
Right, like a small slip-up could mean huge problems for the company. Exactly. A tax director's got to be super meticulous
Yeah.
and have systems in place so those risks are tiny.
And that ties back to the software part, right?
It does.
Not just speed and getting it done, but doing it right.
Yes. Reducing the chance of a really expensive error.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side,
Right.
and then how those skills get used for strategy, too.
Mhm.
But I'm curious about, like, the big picture scope of the job.
Sure.
Did this source give any insight into, like, the overall responsibilities of a tax director? Yes, actually, the FAQ section.
Oh, good.
It does a good job of outlining those duties.
Okay.
So we've got the strategic tax planning, which we talked about,
Yeah.
maintaining tax compliance, and then actually managing the whole tax department.
So not just the ideas, but the execution, too.
Exactly. It's both strategic and operational.
That's a lot.
It is.
Okay, so we've got, what? Big picture thinking, detailed execution.
Yeah. And they get into the skills needed, too.
Okay.
And it goes way beyond just knowing tax stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Leadership, managing a team, problem solving, being analytical,
Yeah.
communicating clearly.
Right. All those things we've been discussing.
Actually, hit on all of them.
It's like a pattern.
It is.
The ideal tax director.
Uh-huh.
Well-rounded, technically solid, but also with all those soft skills.
Precisely. And honestly, those soft skills,
Yeah.
the higher you climb in this field, the more important they get.
That makes sense.
Speaking of climbing the ranks,
Yeah.
what did you think about the qualifications they mentioned?
Yeah, I'm assuming it takes a little more than just, like, filing your own taxes to get this job.
Haha, yeah, a bit more than that.
Okay, so what do they say?
Well, you usually need a bachelor's degree, something business related,
Okay.
like accounting or finance. That's the typical starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, a lot of organizations, they want people with a master's degree.
Wow, so like a master's in taxation.
Exactly. Or maybe an MBA with a tax focus.
Oh, it's becoming more common then.
It is, yeah.
That's interesting.
It's something I've seen more and more over the years.
Yeah.
I think it's just as tax laws get more and more complicated
Yeah.
and the business world keeps evolving,
Right.
the demand for that really specialized knowledge, it just keeps going up.
So education's important. And they mentioned certifications too, right?
They do, like the certified public accountant, the CPA, that's huge.
So it's like the education, the certifications, but real-world experience too.
Yes, you got to have actually applied all that knowledge.
Wow. It's a lot to become a tax director.
It is.
It's not an easy path, that's for sure.
It's demanding, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's also a role that lets you grow, have an impact.
Right. Right.
It's intellectually stimulating.
And we'll dig into those opportunities even more
Oh, yeah.
as we go on with this deep dive.
Can't wait.
Okay, but before we move on, I want to make sure I've got it all straight.
Right.
So to be a tax director,
Mhm.
you need to understand tax law, obviously,
Yes.
be comfortable with all that industry software,
Mm.
and then you need that mix of soft skills, strategy, leadership, communication. Did I miss anything?
You got the essentials.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, good.
But And the source kind of hints at this, but I want to emphasize it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to stay up to date,
Oh, right, with all the changes.
constantly changing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a field that never stops moving, so a tax director,
Right.
they got to be committed to learning their whole career.
Wow, that's a great point.
And it makes me wonder, actually,
Yeah.
what do you think out there listening?
Good question.
What trends are you seeing in business or in tech
Yeah.
that are going to change the tax director role in the future?
Ooh, that's a good one to think about.
Something to ponder
Yeah.
as we head into the next part of our deep dive. That is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And it really gets to like the core of why this job is so dynamic, you know?
Right, right.
And while, this Indeed guide doesn't have like specific predictions,
Yeah.
it does point to some areas where those future trends might pop up.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, so remember how we talked about strategic tax planning?
Mm-hmm.
That becomes even more crucial in a business world that's changing so fast.
Right, because if regulations are always in flux,
Yeah.
a tax director can't just rely on, like, what worked last year or whatever. They got to be ahead of the curve.
Anticipating the changes, seeing how they'll play out, adapting strategies, that's key.
And we're already seeing that, right?
Oh, yeah.
With remote work, the gig economy, all that.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, like, how does a company even figure out where taxes are owed
Right.
when their employees are all over the place?
It gets complicated fast.
It sounds like.
And that's the kind of stuff a smart tax director.
Yeah.
They're thinking about that now, not when it's too late.
So it's future-proofing, in a way.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's not just knowing the current laws. It's like
Yeah.
understanding how all these shifts in the business world are going to affect your tax strategy down the line.
It's almost like they need a business degree and a law degree.
Right. And that brings us to another potential area where things are going to change.
Right.
Technology's role in managing taxes.
We talked about software,
We did?
but you mentioned those, like, enterprise-level solutions.
Yeah. And it goes even beyond that.
Oh, wow. So what else is there?
Well, we're seeing more automation,
Okay.
artificial intelligence, AI,
Right.
data analytics. It's all coming into play.
And that's all for, like, tax purposes.
Yep. These technologies, they can streamline all those processes.
Improve accuracy, and they give you these insights that can lead to much better decisions.
It's almost like a future tax director. They're going to have to be part data scientist or something.
Uh-huh. That's a good way to put it.
Like analyzing all this data to find those hidden tax savings.
Exactly. It highlights another important skill,
What's that?
embracing those new technologies, adapting to them.
So, got to be comfortable with the data,
Mm?
understanding how to use it,
Yeah,
maybe even leading the way when it comes to implementing new systems.
that's right. This is not your old school image of a tax director with a calculator.
Right, right.
Things are changing.
But even with all that tech, I bet the human element's still super important.
You are absolutely right.
Right.
Technology is a powerful tool, but it can't replace human judgment, critical thinking, ethics.
Especially when it comes to those gray areas in tax law, right?
Yes. Where
Right.
there's no easy answer, black and white.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when the tax director's experience, their knowledge, their integrity, it all gets put to the test.
Big time.
So it's like balancing,
Yeah.
harnessing the tech, but not losing those human skills that machines just can't do.
Exactly. And honestly, I think that's relevant even outside of tax.
Really?
Yeah, in any job. Being able to learn, adapt, use technology, but also hold on to your values, that's what makes people successful.
Well said. Okay, before we go too far off topic,
Right.
did the source have anything else about what makes a tax director really good at their job?
Actually, yeah, there were a few questions and answers
Okay.
that talked about communication skills.
That makes sense because they have to explain all this to, like, normal people, right?
Yeah, not everyone's a tax expert.
Right.
So breaking down complicated stuff, using the right language for your audience, building those strong relationships with people inside and outside the company.
It's like they're the bridge between the tax world and everyone else.
They are. And remember that question about communicating law changes to the board?
Yeah, that one seemed tricky.
That's a prime example.
Yeah.
You got to be clear, concise, or you'll lose them.
And it's not just saying what changed, right?
No.
It's explaining why it matters.
Yeah.
How it affects the company, what they should do about it.
Precisely. So you're not just the technical expert.
Right.
You're the communicator, the advisor, the leader who inspires their team.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
This has been so insightful, honestly.
Good, I'm glad.
We've gone beyond just like the job description and seen the bigger context.
I think that's important.
Makes me wonder,
Yeah.
are there certain like personality types
Interesting question.
that are just naturally good at this. Is it for anyone, or are there some traits that make you more likely to succeed as a tax director?
It's a very insightful question.
Yeah.
And while there's no, like, one right answer,
Right.
there are some common traits we see in those who really excel.
Okay, so like what are we talking about?
Well, if we look closely at this source material,
Mhm.
I think we can get some clues.
All right, lead the way. I'm ready to detective this thing.
Okay, so one of the biggest things is a genuine passion for the subject.
Really? Like they actually enjoy taxes?
It might seem dry to some people,
Yeah, for sure.
but to a tax director, the tax code is like a fascinating puzzle to solve.
Oh, interesting.
They love the challenge of figuring it out, finding those creative solutions.
So it's not just a job, it's more like a
Yeah,
calling.
in a way, yeah.
Yeah.
The best tax directors I've met,
Mm,
they're genuinely curious about the field, always want to learn more.
makes sense.
They don't just want to know the rules, they want to know the why behind the rules,
I could see that.
right? And how it all fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah, if you weren't interested in it, I bet you'd get burnt out so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
It's too complex, too much change to keep up with if you don't love it.
Exactly. Now, another thing is a really strong sense of responsibility, ethics.
Okay, makes sense.
They're dealing with sensitive info,
Mm-hmm.
making decisions that affect a lot of money.
Yeah, big decisions.
So they got to be trustworthy, discreet,
Right.
absolutely committed to ethical standards.
And the source mentioned those disagreements with management, right?
Yes, about how to handle tax stuff.
It sounds like a tax director needs to be, like, brave
They do.
to stand up for what they believe in.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah, even when it's
They
hard.
got to advocate for their position,
Right.
back it up with solid reasoning,
Mhm.
and find a way to resolve those conflicts in a fair way, ethically.
That's a tough balancing act.
It is. Okay, so we've got curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
strong work ethic, ethical behavior. What else?
I'm taking notes here.
Uh-huh. All right, well, resilience is huge.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
The tax landscape is constantly shifting, so setbacks, they're going to happen.
Yeah, that's life, I guess.
It is. But a good tax director, they bounce back from those,
Mm-hmm.
they learn from their mistakes, and they keep going.
I bet that's true for any job, honestly.
It is, but especially in tax, when the stakes are so high.
Right, because one mistake could mean...
Yeah, big problems.
And it's not just the external pressure, it's the internal stress, too.
Oh, what do you mean?
Tight deadlines, complex problems, that all weighs on you.
Right.
So they need to stay composed, focused, even when it's tough.
So it's mental and emotional strength, too.
Exactly. It's often overlooked.
Yeah. Okay.
But to do this job well, handle all the demands, and stick to your values, that takes a special kind of strength.
Okay, so let's recap. Curious, analytical mind,
Yes.
good communicator, strong leader, and then responsible, resilient.
Yeah, I got it. And it's worth pointing out,
Yeah.
these qualities, they often develop over time
Oh, okay.
through experience, maybe having a good mentor, and just always learning.
So it's not like you're born with it. You can build these skills.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
It takes dedication, and you got to want to grow.
This whole deep dive has made me appreciate what tax directors do.
I'm glad.
It's clearly a lot more than I realized.
It's challenging, but it seems like it could be really fulfilling, too.
It can be. It can be. And before we move on, I want to highlight one more thing from the source material.
Oh, okay. What's that?
The importance of building strong relationships.
Okay. I'm guessing this is about more than just, like, being nice to your coworkers.
Oh, yeah. It goes way beyond that.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
Tax directors, they got to cultivate relationships with a whole bunch of people.
Like who?
Internal teams, of course,
Hmm.
external advisors, even regulatory authorities.
Okay, I can see why that's important, but can you give me, like, a specific example?
Sure. Let's say a company's thinking about a big merger or an acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
The tax director, they got to work closely with the lawyers, the financial people, everyone involved
Right.
to make sure that whole deal is structured in a way that makes sense tax-wise.
So it's about, like, collaboration, bringing in expertise from different areas.
Exactly. And it's not just for one-time things either.
Oh,
It's about those ongoing relationships where there's trust, open communication.
that makes sense. Like, if you've got a good relationship with the folks at the tax agency,
Right.
it'll probably go a lot smoother if there's ever a question or a problem.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about building bridges, mutual respect, understanding.
So it's not just what you know about taxes, it's who you know.
It's both. And the source material, it doesn't say it outright.
Yeah.
But that message, it's all over those interview questions and answers.
It's like reading between the lines.
Kind of, yeah.
Mm,
The best tax directors, they're not just tech wizards.
right.
They're good at building and keeping those strong relationships.
I'm seeing a theme here.
What's that?
It's not just about what you know, it's about who you know and how you interact with them.
You got it. And like a lot of the things we've talked about,
Yeah.
this is a skill you build up over time.
Okay.
Practice, being self-aware, and genuinely wanting to connect with others.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It can be, but it's worth it.
Okay, so tax director, technical, strategic, and now got to be good with people too.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting mix.
It is, and it seems like we've just scratched the surface.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to explore.
I'm eager to dig deeper into like the specific challenges and the opportunities that tax directors are facing, especially with everything changing so fast.
I agree. And in our final section, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Perfect. I can't wait. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts really unpacking this whole tax director role,
Yeah, we have.
exploring everything from the technical, the strategic side, the relationship piece, adaptability. It's been a lot.
It's been a fascinating journey for sure.
We've definitely got a better sense of what makes this job, well, this job.
Yeah.
But as you said, there are always new challenges popping up, new opportunities too, right?
Absolutely.
So what are tax directors like actually dealing with out there in the real world? What's keeping them up at night these days?
Well, one of the big ones, and actually this Indeed guide touched on it,
Okay.
is just how complex tax laws and regulations are getting.
Right. The source talked about staying current, but
Yeah,
it's easy to say that,
it is.
but to actually do it when the rules are always shifting, that's got to be tough.
It is. It's a constant learning curve.
Yeah.
You got to be dedicated to professional development your whole career.
Wow. It never stops.
Nope. Tax directors need to know about legislative changes, court rulings, trends, anything that could affect their company.
So, like, they need a crystal ball or something.
Uh-huh. Almost. They have to anticipate what's coming,
Right.
see the potential impact, and then proactively come up with strategies to deal with the risks and, seize any opportunities that come up.
So it's not just today's rules. It's like, what might the rules be tomorrow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need a deep understanding of, like, the principles behind tax law,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ability to see the trends, make educated guesses about the future.
That sounds like mentally exhausting.
It can be, for
Yeah.
sure.
But you're saying for people who are drawn to this, it's exciting too.
Oh, absolutely. Intellectually stimulating and, yeah, really rewarding when you get it right.
Okay, so complex laws, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
What else are tax directors dealing with?
Well, another big one is globalization.
Right? The source didn't go into that too much.
No, it didn't.
I can only imagine, like, if you're operating in multiple countries,
Yeah.
taxes must be a nightmare.
It adds a whole new level of complexity, that's for sure.
Okay, so walk me through it.
So companies are expanding overseas more and more,
Mm-hmm.
which means tax directors have to be familiar with laws in all the different places.
And I'm guessing those laws are all different.
Oh, yeah, sometimes drastically different.
Wow. Okay.
So you need a global mindset,
Like you're thinking about taxes on a worldwide scale.
right. Navigating international tax law, maybe working with local advisors in each country,
Mm-hmm.
coordinating with teams all over, and coming up with strategies that optimize everything for the company, but still follow the rules everywhere.
Honestly, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be pretty intense, but it's also exciting,
Really?
Yeah, you get to expand your horizons,
Mm-hmm.
develop a truly global perspective.
So it's more than just the tax codes.
It is.
It's understanding different cultures, how business is done in those places.
Exactly. It's like being a global citizen, but for taxes.
I like that. Okay, so globalization's another big one.
Mm-hmm. And then there's technology.
Right, we talked about that a bit.
You did.
But I bet it's more than just using the right software.
It is, yeah. The way businesses operate is changing so fast,
Mm.
and the tax world is scrambling to keep up.
So, like, what are we talking about?
E-commerce,
Okay.
cloud computing, cryptocurrency, all that.
Right, right.
Those are all areas where the old rules of taxes, they don't really fit anymore.
So how do tax directors even approach that?
You got to be willing to embrace the change, keep learning, be creative.
Sounds tough.
It is. You got to stay on top of those emerging technologies,
Yeah.
understand how they're changing business models,
Right.
and then figure out the tax implications, which are always evolving.
It's like there's no textbook for this stuff.
Sometimes no.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with not having all the answers right away.
So analyzing, weighing options, making the best decision you can with what you know.
Exactly. And being ready to adjust as things change, because they will change.
Okay, so challenges, challenges.
Right. We've talked about a lot of those.
But there must be some opportunities that come with all this.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the biggest ones, this ties back to tech,
Okay.
is using data and analytics to make better decisions.
So not just crunching numbers, but like getting insights from them.
Exactly. Tax directors now, they have access to so much data.
Yeah, I bet.
And by analyzing it, you can spot trends, see potential risks, and then fine-tune those tax strategies.
So it's like taking it to the next level.
It is. Going beyond just compliance, being
Right.
proactive,
Mm-hmm. And data can help with communication too, right?
it can. Data visualization
Yeah.
tools, that can make even the most complicated stuff clear.
Right, right.
And you can even use predictive modeling,
What's that?
basically using data to try and forecast what your tax liability might be in the future.
Wow, that's getting fancy.
It is. And it's not just for internal use either. You
Ugh.
can use data to explain things to stakeholders, make your case more effectively.
Because numbers don't lie, as they say.
Right. And that leads me to another opportunity for tax directors,
Okay, I'm listening.
taking on a more strategic role within their companies.
Interesting. How so?
Well, with everything we've talked about, tax laws getting more complex, globalization,
Mm-hmm.
the tax director's position is becoming more and more important.
Makes sense.
They're not just number crunchers anymore.
Right.
They're being asked to give strategic advice on all kinds of business decisions.
So they're moving from the back office to the boardroom.
In a lot of cases, yes.
Yeah.
Mergers and acquisitions, international expansion, all that.
That's a big shift.
It is. And it takes more than just knowing the tax code.
Right. You need to understand the whole business side of things.
Business acumen, strategic thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be able to communicate all that to the top executives.
So for tax directors who are ambitious, there's a lot of room to grow.
There is, absolutely. And it can be incredibly fulfilling, both professionally and personally.
Wow, this has been eye-opening, honestly.
Yeah, I'm glad.
We've covered so much.
Yeah,
Technical skills, strategic thinking, relationships, challenges, opportunities.
it's a lot.
It is, but it's clear being a tax director is tough, but
Yeah.
it can be a really great career.
I completely agree. And I think for anyone who's intellectually curious, who's adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
and really interested in the tax world, how it's always changing.
Right, right.
It's a career with a ton of potential.
So for our listeners who might be thinking about this path,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them based on all we've discussed today? What are the big takeaways?
Great question. I think the biggest thing is, remember, this role is always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be a lifelong learner.
Okay.
Stay curious, embrace new technologies, and always look for ways to learn and grow your skills.
Solid advice. Anything else you'd add?
Don't underestimate those soft skills.
Right. Communication, collaboration, all that.
Exactly. Those are crucial for success in this field.
Those human skills, they really make all the difference.
They do. Any final words of wisdom?
Let's hear 'em.
Stay informed. Keep up with trends in both tax and business.
Okay.
Read industry publications, go to conferences, network with people.
Makes sense.
The more you understand the big picture, the better you'll be able to navigate this complex world of taxes.
Excellent advice. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of tax directors.
Sounds good.
We've covered so much ground today,
We have.
and I hope everyone listening now has a much better grasp on this career path, all its challenges and rewards.
I hope so too.
As always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.